Welcome back to the studio. Growing up in the Midwest as I did, one thing we know and we have in abundance are cows and corn. And as they say, the corn should be knee-high by the 4th of July, and we've already surpassed that this year. And we actually have even some dairy cows here in my town, and they make the beautiful, delicious, organic cow's milk, which I do love. I also do drink almond milk and coconut milk at night, but I still love my dairy milk. Today we're going to be making the Holy Cow. This is the large version, and this will be a simple one. I had already the background fabric, which I've used in the past. I really like this. It's a light fabric, but it still shows up the applique well. And I also went and picked out a couple different fabrics for the outer border. So I'll get all of that done today in this video, but I won't get it quilted. So I'm going to go ahead and pull you in closer so you can see the pattern up close and see all the components that come in the kit. Now this kit is already has the fabric in it. The fabric has been pre-selected for you. The fabric's all laser cut, so you don't have to do any cutting. It's all pre-fused with Steam 2 in the factory, and so you don't have to do any fusing yourself. And so all you have to do is peel, place, and press. Peel the paper off the back, place it where it goes on the background, and then the final step is pressing with steam. So we'll explain all those steps as we go. I have the tools that I'm going to need out. I have an iron, which in my case is a dry iron. I don't put water in my iron, that way I know it'll never leak. I have a spray bottle, which I'm going to use, has plain water in it. That's how I'm going to activate the Steam 2 adhesive. It does require water or steam, just the way that concrete requires water to activate it. And I have my light box. This particular one is called Light Energy, or L-I-T-E-N-E-R-G-Y. I got this at Amazon. It was the largest one they had at the time, but they have much larger now. So you can see my background fabric is very light with a little bit of gray, little cross hatching on it, and I think it'll pick up the black and white that are in the fabrics here pretty well. So when we open the kit, what you'll find is we have the color cover sheet that's really handy if you have any questions about which color piece goes in which place. Now this is a pretty simple kit, so I don't think we're going to have any questions with this particular one today, but sometimes this comes in really handy. The other thing that we have in the kit is our full-size paper pattern. And one of the things I always like to do is give this a press with my iron just to get out any creases. It just helps with making sure I have all of the placement right. I don't want any of those creases to translate into an item being misplaced on the pattern. And since I have a dry iron, I don't have to worry about damaging the paper. And that's pretty quick to do. So now I can simply slide that underneath my background fabric. And we know that we want this corner here, just as it is in the pattern, to go into the corner of the block. So that's where we could start with that. You also get an instruction sheet that tells you step by step how to do this process with the fusible applique. Now I have had this sheet many times, and so I don't need extra copies of it. I always use this to capture the backing papers of my pieces, and that way they won't fall on the floors. The backing of this paper is still a little sticky from the Steam 2, and if they land face down, they will, stick on the floor a little bit, and it's hard to sweep them up. You can pick them up, of course, but I don't always like to have to bend over to pick up all these little pieces. So I'll stick them on the paper, and it just makes it easy to pick up. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out all of our pieces. and sometimes it's nice just to kind of place them in the vicinity of where they're going to go, and that just speeds up the process a little bit. But like I said, this is a pretty simple one. I always save these bags too. Now those I don't know why I save, but I do. But I'm going to separate these into pieces, and this just helps speed up the process when you're actually doing the applique into place. Quite often I misplace a piece and I look down and it's stuck to my belly because I'm leaning over the pieces to reach the background. So I've got all my pieces out and I'm ready to go. I'm just going to check the camera and make sure that we're in a good angle here, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, I've adjusted the camera just a little bit, just to make sure everything's in clear view. You can see on the pattern some of the pieces have dotted lines, and those dotted lines just mean that that part of the pattern goes behind something else. So I'm going to say that this the body goes first, and then the head goes next, and then the snout. So that's the order that I'm going to put these pieces on. And what I want to do, I'll show you first what happens with the paper, just in case. If you have a hard time peeling the paper off, you could always score the paper with the pen, with a seam ripper, or any sharp object. You just peel or rub it against the back, and it just gives you a place to lift up that paper and peel it off with. I don't usually have a problem here with the fusible not coming off, but if you ever do, that is the best way to get it to come free. So there's my first piece down, and you can see that that is stuck on there even though I haven't fused it yet. But we still can reposition that if we need to. So I can go ahead now and do some of these things that are behind the head as well, like these ears. So now you can see that all you have to do is bend the paper back, and you can peel these other pieces off just like that. It's a very easy process. This is so easy, in fact, you could probably have kids of almost any age help you with this process. And you can see this one's off just a little bit, so I could just peel it up and put it back down again. But once that pattern's gone, no one's going to know if you're off a little bit. If you want to do this with very young kids, you could just have them play with the applique pieces without putting the removing the paper, and they could work with this just like a puzzle. And if they were a little bit older, they could actually go ahead and help you peel the paper off and put it on the background pieces. If you don't have a light box, but you have a glass table in the house, you could always put a light under the glass table, or you could tape the paper pattern to a window and use the window as a light box. The nice thing about having somebody help you with this is not only are you creating a gift for somebody, but you're also creating a memory. And sometimes that is a really important part. When you get to some of these pieces, you have multiple layers. So like on the face, you'd have the head, this big black section and then the two eyes, and it becomes too much fabric for you to see all the way through. So sometimes what I'll do is do some of the top pieces first and then take those off and go back and do some of the other layers as we go down. So in this case, I'm going to position the eye pieces. And once I get the eyes where they go in the eye socket, I could lift those up and put these down. And as you can see, it's a little hard to see those. So I can lift up the pattern a little bit to help see where those go, even with the light box. Then when I put the head down, all I have to do is place these black sections, and it will be easier to know that all of my other layers are correct. Now if we can get this top lined up, then we know pretty well that we have the rest lined up. And the head is light enough that I could see through it to see where these eye portions go. Another one that I probably should have pre-done was the nostrils on the snout, but I didn't. I'll have to give it a good guess as to where those go. And you can see just how fast in real time these patterns go. This would be a fun thing to do if you had a girls' night, if you're doing a welcome home gift, or a bachelorette party, a baby shower. Be something fun you could do as a project when you're all together. And I'm just going to lift this up just to get a peek at where those go. And just like that, all of these pieces are in place. Now, these pieces are temporarily stuck to the background, but they're not fused yet. And to do that, we need to get the iron and the moisture ready. So I'm going to go ahead and replace my light box with a Teflon pressing sheet, and we're going to go ahead and get this fused. I have a Teflon pressing sheet here underneath the block, and I'm also going to fold it over the top after I spray this. Now, the fusible does need both heat and moisture to activate that steam seam tube, just as the name indicates with the steam portion of the name. So I don't use steam in my iron because I usually trip over the cord at some point and drop the iron, and it breaks the seal and the iron starts leaking. Or it goes through a self-cleaning cycle and sputters on a project I've been working on for a long time. And I don't like that, so I don't put water in my iron. Doesn't matter how expensive or cheap an iron is, it seems like they always have an issue with leaking at some point. So I just go ahead and spritz the applique with plain water, and I'm just going to fold over my Teflon pressing sheet, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab my iron, and I'm just going to set it in place. while I talk. The Teflon pressing sheet does many things to help benefit me as a sewer or appliquer in this position. The Teflon pressing sheet acts like an insulator in a way, and it helps prevent me from scorching the background fabric or the applique if I leave it a little too long in one place. It also helps prevent anything that's on the sole plate of the iron from transferring onto the fabric. It prevents any of the fusible from seeping out from the edges of the applique and getting onto the sole plate, so it keeps both the fabric and the sole plate clean. It also protects the edges of the applique. I have in the past been lazy and slid the iron from side to side, and it has caught the edge of the applique with the edge of the sole plate, but then it's underneath and I can't see that it's all crinkled up, and it's fused it in a mess. So with this Teflon pressing sheet, pressing it down, it can't mess up the edges. So I really like that. A lot of times people will ask me how long they have to hold the iron in place, and I'm not going to be able to answer that exactly because we all have different irons. They have different heat settings. They're different qualities of iron. We start with different ambient temperatures. So I can't tell you that. But you just will have to learn from experience a little bit. What I do always practice is that I always fuse from the top down, and then I'll flip the block over and I'll fuse from the back down as well. So I'm making sure that I activate the steam through all of those compound layers. Just as you saw with the eye and the eye socket and the big black portion around the eye, and then the head, and then the background fabric, there's several layers of fabric and fusible, and that moisture has to penetrate all of those layers, and the heat has to penetrate all those layers. And if we don't get all of those activated, then it's not going to be permanent in those locations. We do not fuse or top stitch any of our applique in the studio. If it's a quilt, we will quilt over it, but we don't top stitch our samples. If Steam 2 is properly fused during this stage, there is no need to top stitch it. It is permanent. It can go through multiple wash cycles and dry cycles without coming off. We have used this on an apron and washed it over a dozen times and dried it, and it's still permanent. So it had no edges coming off. My sister would love this because she used to have a whole bunch of cow decor in her house. And I know a lot of people in my area also have this type of decor. So now I have fused it from the top down. I'm going to flip the block over, and I'm going to reapply moisture everywhere that I can see applique shapes. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat the whole process from the backside now. And another reason I kind of like the Steam 2 or the Teflon pressing sheet is that it traps the moisture so that it can't go out and up. It traps it down, and so I'm really hoping that it goes through the fabric, and it traps it at the bottom too, so it really is forcing it in through all the layers. This is going to be a cute one, and it's going to be a little one, a little sample, so it's going to be a little bit easier to find a spot for it because I'm really getting to the point where I'm overcrowded with new samples, but that's okay with me. I like to have a lot of things that I could swap out in the studio. And I recently handed off about 10 of the samples that I've done to my friend who does the whip stitching on the binding. So it won't be too long before she gives me all of those back, and I'm going to be able to do a whole reset of all of the samples in the studio. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up because I know it's a little bit like watching paint dry, but I'll bring you back in when I get this fully dry and set. So this is the Holy Cow finished, and you can see it really doesn't take that long with any of these pre-fused applique kits. They really can go together really quick. So they make great gifts for that reason, for Christmas, birthday, any of the holidays. Dorm gifts. So this one's finished, but I want to go ahead and finish it out. I did pick out a couple of different fabrics to do for the inner and outer border, so I'm going to go ahead and get those on and show you what that looks like, and then we'll go ahead and conclude. One of the things about this block is it's almost a completely different color story than anything else that I've done in the applique line since I've started. And that gave me an opportunity to do something different. With all of the black and orange, it gave me the opportunity to use some black and white and orange, and the black and white are usually much more graphic. I wanted to use the black and white stripe as the inner border, but I didn't want to have to miter these little tiny 1.5 inch strips. So I went ahead and put a cornerstone, and that gave me the opportunity to bring in the orange. That way the cornerstone looks intentional, and then I could bring in the polka dot on the outside. So this is a 1.5 inch cut, these are 4.5 inch cut, and that finishes this off, and I think it gives it a really nice strong punch. Holy cow, that means we're finished. Well, this one's done for now. I'm not going to quilt it today. I'm going to wait. I'm actually going away for almost a month, but I hope to have enough videos up that you won't miss me. Not that you would anyway. But I'll quilt this when I get back and decide what to do with it. There's a couple other appliques in the series that have these same colors, so I'll get to work with these graphic fabrics again in the future, but for today I think this is going to look really sharp in the studio. Would make a great gift for any Midwesterner or anyone that loves cows or milk. So Holy Cow in the bag. Thanks for stopping by the studio today and joining us for this project. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, do something great for yourself today. Take care of yourself and take care of each other.